Good morning, students. In today's lecture, we are going to discuss about biomolecules. First of all, what is mean by biomolecules? See here, biomolecules, it also called biological molecule, any of numerous substances that are produced by cells and living organisms. Biomolecules, that is biological molecules, and any of the living organism and cell that produces the numerous substance that are called biomolecules. There are four major types of biomolecules. One, carbohydrate. Second, lipid. Third, protein. Fourth, nucleic acid. In our syllabus, we discuss about three biomolecules, that is carbohydrates, lipids and proteins. First of all, introduction of biomolecules. Biomolecules are macromolecules that are also called as biomacromolecules. Biomacromolecules are polymers formed due to bonding of monomers of micromolecules. Four major types of biological macromolecules are see here. That is, here is column. First, type of polymer. Second, monomer making of polymer, and last column there is examples. The four major types that are formed by using which monomer and their examples see here. First, carbohydrates are polysaccharide polymer which are made up of by using monosaccharide as a monomer unit and to form carbohydrate. For example, sugar, starch, cellulose. Second, proteins. Proteins are prepared by using amino acid as a monomer and number of amino acid linked together to form proteins. For example, enzymes, structural components. Third, lipids. Lipids are prepared by using fatty acids and glycerol as a monomer unit. For example, fats, nucleic acid, steroids and cholesterol. Fourth, nucleic acid. Nucleic acid prepared by using nucleotides as a monomer unit. For example, DNA, RNA. Next, in biomolecules we will discuss about protein, carbohydrate and lipids in detail. In protein we will discuss in our syllabus introduction of protein, functions, classification of amino acids, physiochemical properties, optical activity, reaction with ninhydrin formaldehyde, amino acids, essential and non-essential amino acids, efficiency structure, peptide bond, end group analysis, helix, beta helix structure, tertiary and quaternary structure, globular protein, fibrous protein, amino acid, therapy, protein engineering. In protein, all of these points we are covered in our syllabus. Then in carbohydrate we will discuss complex carbohydrate, structure of chitin, starch, glycogen and metabolism. And third, in lipid we will discuss definition of lipid, classification, functions, type of fatty acids and its biological roles and metabolism. Next, first of all, in today's lecture we will discuss about the proteins. Here in today's lecture we will discuss introduction of proteins and biological functions of proteins. First of all, introduction of proteins. Protein is a macromolecule composed of one or more polypeptide chains possessing a characteristic amino acid sequence. See here, protein is a macromolecule that is composed of one or more polypeptide chain which are possessing a characteristic amino acid sequence. Simply, it is a polymer of amino acids and it is the body builder. Simply we remember that proteins is a polymer of amino acid. It is prepared by using the amino acid number of amino acid monomer combined to form the proteins. It is also called as a body builder. The term protein is derived from Greek word proteinou, that is primary or holding first place. The term protein was first proposed by Brazilian scientist. The examples of proteins are hemoglobin, myoglobin, myosin, actin, cytochrome, silk, wool, albumin, globulin are important proteins. Then biological functions of proteins. First function is enzyme catalysis. We all know about the functions of enzyme that catalyze a number of reactions. Here all the enzymes are nothing but proteins. Almost all chemical reactions in the biological systems are catalyzed by enzymes. Next, transport. Next function of protein is a transport. There is number of proteins that involves the function of transport. Protein transport ions and small molecules. For example, hemoglobin is a conjugated proteins of blood transport oxygen. Next, myoglobin is a muscle protein transport oxygen in the muscle, and transferrin carries iron in a plasma of blood. In these functions of hemoglobin, myoglobin, transferrin, we are all of you know about it. We had studied these points in a bioinorganic. We all of you well known about this. That is hemoglobin used for transport of oxygen, myoglobin used for transport of oxygen in muscle, and transferring carrying iron in a plasma of blood. Membrane protein transport glucose, amino acids and other nutrients across the membrane into the cell. Next function, third function of the proteins biological function is storage. A storage molecules, that is ferritin, a protein store iron in the liver. Seed store nutrient proteins, for example wheat, corn, rice and oats. Next biological functions of the protein is that nutrients. Certain proteins functions as a nutrients. For example, egg containing ovulin and milk contains casein. Next biological functions of protein is that contraction and movement. The contraction of muscles is brought about by two fibrous proteins called actin and myosin. These proteins are help for contractions and movement of our muscles. The microtubules of flagella and cilia are built on the tubulin of protein. Most important part of this is that two fibrous proteins as actin and myosin are help for the contraction of muscles. Next, mechanical support. Many proteins serve as supporting filament, cables or sheets to give biological structures, strength, support and protection. For example, collagens, a fibrous protein, is the major component of tendons, cartilage and leather. Next, keratin is a protein present in a hair, finger, nail and feathers that are insoluble proteins and main component of hair, finger, nail and feathers that are acting as a supporting as well as give a shape. Next, immunoprotection. Many proteins defend organisms against invasions by other species. Antibodies are proteins. Immunoglobulins antibodies neutralizes the foreign germs. Next, biological functions of the proteins is that blood clotting. Bleeding is stopped by formation of clot. Clotting is brought about by blood clotting proteins such as fibrinogens and thrombin. These two proteins are most important for clotting the bloods, fibrinogens and thrombins. Next biological function, that is transmission of nerve impulse. The nerve impulse is transmitted through synapse with the help of receptor proteins. There is number of receptor proteins that help in transmission of nerve impulse. Next, gene expressions. In a cell, all the genes are not functioning at a time. Only a few genes are active and other genes remains in an inactive condition. The inactivation of genes is brought by receptor proteins. Next, hormonal action. Many hormones are proteins, for example insulin. These hormones are important to level the glucose in the blood. To maintain the glucose level in the blood. Growth hormones important for the proper growth of human being. Parathyroids, hormones and etc. Next, thermoregulations. The blood plasma of some Arctic fishes contains antifreeze proteins which protect them for blood from clotting the blood from freezing. Next, in today's lecture we will discuss about what is protein, that is definition of protein and biological functions of protein. In definition we will see protein is a polymer of amino acid and it is a bodybuilder. And in biological function we will discuss here 12 biological functions, that is enzyme catalyst, that is number of the proteins that catalyze the almost all chemical reactions in biological systems. Transport proteins, we will remember that hemoglobin that transport the oxygen, myoglobin that transport the oxygen in the muscle, transferrin carries iron in the plasma of the blood. Next, storage protein is the ferritin. Protein store iron in the liver. Seed store nutrient proteins, for example wheat, corn, rice. Nutrients, that is certain proteins functions as nutrients, for example egg containing albumin, milk contains caseins. There is number of the proteins that are involved the functions for the contraction and movement, that are the actin and myosin. These two fibrous proteins that involves important role for contraction and movement of the muscles. Next, the mechanical support. Many proteins serve as supporting filament, cables and sheets, for example collagens. Fibrous proteins is the major component of tendons, cartilage and leather. Keratin is a major component of your hair, finger, nails and feathers. Immunoprotection, that is antibodies are proteins and immunoglobulins. Antibodies neutralize the foreign germs that are required for you to. Then next, blood clotting. Blooding is stopped by formation of clot, and clotting is brought about by blood clotting proteins that is fibrinogens and thrombin. These two proteins are most important for clotting of the blood. And next important biological functions of protein is that transmission of nerve impulse with the help of receptor protein. And then gene expressions. The inactivation of gene is brought by repressor proteins. Then hormonal actions. Many hormones are proteins, that is the insulin that used to balance the glucose level in the blood, growth hormones, parathyroid hormones, and etc. Then thermoregulations. Some Antarctic fishes contains antifreeze proteins that which protect the blood from freezing. Then thank you. This is about the today's lecture.